how then do I manage my taxes in such a way that I avoid penalties and I avoid being over-deducted?
And that's a very good question, and that's where record keeping would do you a lot of good. Okay, so to avoid paying penalties, you need to be familiar with your obligation first of all. They say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, right? So you can't drive on a one-way and say that, oh, you had an emergency, you were not aware, right? So you can't be ignorant. You should know what those fines and penalties are. So what I would say is that every individual needs to first of all get a copy of these 4 laws. There are 4 of them. Okay. The first one is the Nigeria Tax Act, which speaks to all the taxes that would be collectible from 1st of January on a federal level. Okay, it speaks to all those taxes. The second one is called the Nigeria Tax Administration Act. That Nigeria Tax Administration Act speaks to how the tax authorities, by the way, the federal tax authorities that we know as Federal Inland Revenue Service, their name has been changed to the Nigeria Revenue Service. Okay. Okay. So the Nigeria Tax Administration Act speaks to how the Nigeria Revenue Service, as well as the State Internal Revenue Service, would administer the taxes contained in the Nigeria Tax Act. Okay. Okay. So it speaks to the administration. And one of the first thing it tells you is that, first of all, you even need to be registered for taxes. Okay. You need to get a tax identification. All right. And it's so easy to get a tax identification. You could go online, you could get it from the sites of the tax authorities. So once you register, you've saved yourself from a penalty. In that Nigeria Tax Administration Act I spoke about, there is a section called offenses and penalties. So it lists all the offenses based on the law, and it lists all the penalties, right? And those penalties range from as low as 10,000 to as high as 100,000 administrative penalties. That is for not doing what is expected of you in terms of filing returns. Yeah. If there is now a tax liability that you probably did not declare or you probably did not pay, there is now a penalty where you would now have to pay interest, okay? So government would look at the time value of money, right? And government is also a stakeholder in your business. They would say, I mean, looking at the time value of money, if you ought to have paid this amount by so time, but you didn't pay it, they would charge you using the interest rate available by the monetary policy, okay? Monetary policy rate, currently at 27%. So that will be the interest that will be applicable. So to avoid paying all these things, it's important you get a copy of these laws. You see all the obligations that you have to comply with, and try as much as you can to begin to comply. Things such as having a tax ID, like I said, things such as keeping records, right? Things such as filing tax returns. You need to comply with all this to avoid paying penalties. So the truth is that the committee I made mention of that came up with the drafting of the law, they are trying and they are working on interpreting and bringing down these taxes in simple terms. I know they are currently working on translating these tax laws from English to languages like Pidgin, Hausa, Yoruba. Okay, so they are translating all these things, and because they are kind of inclusive, right? They also recognize those who are probably disabled, right? So they are trying to see how they can also interpret, put these things on a kind of audio version, something you can just listen to, right? They are trying to work on ways to make it accessible to even those who are challenged, right? So they are doing all that. So by the time you have these things in simple languages, right, it will be easy for them to understand it. Then I know they have also signed some MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with some of the communication medias to bring this thing to the awareness of people. But yes, work is being done in the background. I think the only thing I would just say is that they need to act faster, because it's just next month, right?
Yeah, we're just days away now.
Days away. So they need to act faster so that everyone can begin to understand their
So as they're working on simplifying the language and transforming it into languages that everybody can understand, they're also working on the distribution of this information, right?
Yes. And if I one thing I would say I would give credit to the current committee is that, and if you think about it, has there been any tax law? I said tax. Has there been any law in Nigeria that has been this much debated? I don't think we've had laws like this as debated or as talked about as much as this, right?
Yeah, this one takes money out of your pocket.
so this is actually it's actually important. Well, I won't say the whole idea is to take money out of your pocket. There are some initiatives they're actually carrying out to actually give money to people, right? And I know part of the things they want individuals to do with respect to the getting the tax ID is also to see instances where they can give palliatives, right? If you think about the time when we had lockdown in 2020, we had lots of committees responsible for distributing palliatives, the COVID run by the Lagos state government with some prominent Nigerians back then. Okay, there was always this challenge of do you know someone who was probably vulnerable, who had access to some of these palliatives? We saw instances, I'm sure you might recall instances in the north where lots of palliative items distributed by prominent Nigerians were kept in a storehouse, and a lot of people were rushing, there were stampedes to get these things. So they want to use it as a form of organized manner in distributing palliatives to the poor and the vulnerable, just by tracking your spending behavior, your spending habit, as well as your income habits, right? So if they're able to get your tax ID and identify that you probably don't load your phone with airtime of 1,000 naira, or if you get to do that is once in a quarter, you get to do that, they will definitely identify you as a poor person. And when it comes to distribution, we complain in Nigeria, data is a massive problem. When it comes to distribution of some of these incentives, some of these loan schemes that the government is working with the likes of Smidan to give to the poor and vulnerable, or the agricultural farmers, this is a good platform to actually use in carrying out those initiatives.
It sounds a lot like we're talking about tax and we're talking about relief.
Yes.
Should they go together?
Yes, and that's why the committee is called Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, right? So you can actually use tax as a means, or let me just say the government, if you look at it, these are part of what is referred to as fiscal policy, right? When a government wants to use taxes and spending as a way of actually impacting on the livelihood and well-being of individuals, right? So if you think of it from a contractionary and expansionary fiscal policy, contractionary being that you are collecting more taxes from the people, and expansionary being that you are doing more spending, right? So they both go hand in hand, right? So the committee is responsible not just for taxes, but also from a fiscal perspective, right? So those two were in their mind when drafting the tax laws. And that's why in the tax laws, you would see a section in the Nigeria Tax Act, Chapter 8, to be specific, for those who are listening and probably want to just glance through what is contained. If you go to the Nigeria Tax Act, you go to Chapter 8, that section just deals with incentives. It's all about incentives, yes.
That's very interesting. So I should pay attention to Chapter 8.
Yes, of the Nigeria
I like
Tax
incentives.
Act.